Aloha, everyone. Thank you for joining us. We'll wait a few more seconds for attendees to join. Aloha, everyone. Thank you so much for taking the time to join us. We'll begin shortly. Give it a few more seconds. I see some attendees piling in. Thank you so much for your time. Okay, let's begin. Aloha and welcome to the County of Hawaii Department of Research and Development's fiscal year 2021-2022 Innovation Grant Information webinar. My name is Mike Alameda of Naleo TV, and we are honored to help facilitate this presentation. Some quick housekeeping requests before we get started. For attendees, if you're interested in asking any questions, please direct them in the question and answer feature, and we'll get to them in the end. At this moment, allow me to introduce the Director for the County's Department of Research and Development, Douglas Adams. Douglas, the floor is yours.
Thanks, Micah, and thanks to you and your team, and also to our County Public Information Officer, Cyrus Jonathan, for this whole setup. It's not often that you actually get introduced by a professional, so thank you so much for the introduction.
Thank you.
As Micah said, I'm the Director of the Department of Research and Development, and we're going to talk to you today about the Innovation Grant for fiscal year 2021-2022. I should say right at the outset that if I misspeak or if you hear something and it does not necessarily coincide with the document here, which is the actual RFP or request for proposal document, this document is what applies, not what I say, as my folks would tell you. Always go with the written word. All righty. So we're going to talk to you about that. Let me turn to the agenda, if we could, please. Great. We're going to do talk a little bit about goals and program area objectives. We're going to give you some basics on the program. We'll talk about the format and the evaluation criteria, and then requirements, and then finally get to your questions. I am not the star of the show. The stars of the show will be following when we get to the actual specifics, but unfortunately you'll be stuck with me for the beginning and then at the end as we go through the just really exciting and dry information. But it's really important that you follow those rules, because that's what's going to get you a highest score. And this is all about getting the highest score you can for your proposal. All right, yeah, we'll turn to the next one. Great. So I'm going to introduce you to our team here in Research and Development that handles our contracts as a part of the Innovation Grant proposals. Glenn Sacco and Sarah Freeman are our Agriculture and Food Systems specialists. Justin Feinstone is our Creative Industry and Film Commissioner. Jane Harike manages our economic development. Riley Saito is our energy coordinator. Beth Dykstra manages our sustainable development, among other things. And then Frecia Ceballos is everything about tourism. I would just point to you a little bit about what the department is involved in. We are actually chartered by the Hawaii County Charter. Our duties and functions you can see here on the screen. We are a data development and data-driven organization to help with managerial and administrative and legislative decision-making. We also work with our partners at the federal and state level, as well as in the private sector and nonprofit sector, to make sure that we are developing programs, enterprises, and plans that, as it says here, enhance and improve the county's environmental, cultural, community, and economic sustainability and resilience. So let's move on to the next slide. Our approach here has to do very much with, it's very much aligned with the UN Sustainable Development goals, 17 of these particular goals. And so let me just identify for you what those actually are, just because I think it's important. You can't really read them up there. So Goal number one, end poverty in all its forms. 0 hunger is 2. Number 3 is health. 4 is education. 5 is gender equality and women's empowerment. 6 is water and sanitation. 7 is energy. 8 is economic growth. 9 is infrastructure and industrialization. Number 10 is combating inequality. Number 11 is cities. Number 12 is sustainable consumption and production. 13 is climate change, a biggie. 14 is oceans. 15, biodiversity, forests, and desertification. 16, peace, justice, and strong institutions. And then 17 there at the top, partnerships for the goals. And so you see how they're broken out with prosperous economy, a thriving society, and a healthy environment. What we want to do and what we try to do here in the county is take what the United Nations and all the countries, and frankly, a variety of cities and counties have focused on, and bring that to our level here on this island and in this county. You see the collaboration and partnership that's part of this, working with our communities here on the island, government agencies, nonprofit organization, and our businesses and trade organizations. All of what we're trying to do is work together so that we can develop a future that we all are looking forward to. And then let's move to the next slide. So this is a transition slide, and we move into our goal, which is a high quality of life for Hawaii Island residents through innovations that balance our economic, social, and environmental well-being. And those are very important, right? Those are the economic, the social, or equity and environmental aspects. And you see the small little words that are in the intersection there, where it's bearable, viable, and equitable. Ultimately, it needs to be sustainable. And we just had a sustainability summit. We had a lot of definitions associated with that in the listening sessions we did before the summit. The idea is to move towards a sustainable future that takes in consideration all of these things, including the needs and desires of the residents of the island. So our grant proposals must address this overarching goal. So when you are putting together your proposal, make sure that you are focused on this particular goal as an aspect of your proposal. Okay. Now into our objectives. At this point, I'm going to turn it over to our specialists, and I will leading off is Glenn Sacco. Glenn.
Thank you, Doug. So this is the Agriculture and Food Systems Program objectives. To increase consumption of local agricultural and value-added products at the local or export markets. There's been a lot of emphasis on that with this pandemic to support our local producers and to get the local products to our residents. To improve the quality, productivity, and safety of agricultural producers, systems, and products through research, development, and education. Support expansion of agricultural industries and methodologies with farmer training programs. Reduce the negative impacts of invasive species on agricultural crops through research and educational programs, and to reduce the number of incidents of agricultural theft. So the next slide, Sarah.
Hi everyone, my name is Sarah Freeman. I'm the Food Access Coordinator for Hawaii County. Our other objectives in this area are to preserve agricultural lands through improvements to soil and water conservation programs, permitting policies, and landscape level innovations. To facilitate the development of affordable farm worker housing by developing recommended reform and deploying strategies with existing government support programs. And to support the effective integration of the food systems network into local agricultural networks, production systems, and value chains.
At this time, we'll have our creative arts guru and Emmy winner and film commissioner, Justin Feinstone.
Mahalo, Doug. So for the creative industries, there are two program objectives. The first is strengthen and preserve Hawaii Island's communities and natural resources as outstanding business locations through, for example, industry meetings, workshops, conferences, and trade shows. The second is develop local creative industries through, for example, workforce development, incubators, accelerators, or multi-purpose facilities. And I want to point out, if you're not new to this grant process, you might remember this is the film program. It's now broadened to all the creative industries. And so RFP submissions don't have to be just film and video related. They can also be anything to do with the creative industries, visual arts, performing arts, etc. So please keep that in mind.
Thanks, Justin. At this time, we're going to turn to Jane Harike, who is a legend in our department. Jane.
Thank you, Doug. Okay, the Economic Development Program will be accepting applications that innovatively build the local, national, and international reputation and exposure of Hawaii businesses and its products, support industry meetings, workshops, conferences, or trade shows, and those that promote local, state, and federal programs and resources advancing economic development. Also advance collaborative projects that build Hawaii's dominant, emerging, and highest paying industries and sectors, such as the science and technology and the knowledge-based industries, and also projects that improve household financial self-sufficiency and mobility by advancing workforce development efforts to decrease household debt and expenses and increase household income and wealth, advancing inclusive growth and community-based economic development. Thank you.
Thanks, Jane. Yeah, just a few things there that folks should be able to look at proposals that address a lot of those things. And so turning now to our energy program, Riley Saito, the man that needs no introduction. And so I won't give him one. There you go, Riley, our energy coordinator. And you're on mute.
Mahalo, Doug. All right, energy program objectives. With energy, advancing renewable energy resilient projects for Hawaii Island, identifying and implement energy efficiency projects to reduce energy expenses and load and consumption, plan and implement renewable energy projects for County of Hawaii with significant return on investment, expand the use of alternative fueled vehicles, including within the county's fleet, expand the network of zero emission vehicle fueling and charging infrastructure and stations. Advance innovative, low cost, efficient transportation systems like transportation network, autonomous vehicles, and car sharing. Address disproportionate health, environmental, economic, and climate impacts on disadvantaged communities. Implement a demonstration project that has the potential to reduce the cost of living for Hawaii Island's residents.
Thanks, Riley. Those, as you and I have talked about in the past, those are really important items, the idea of which would be ultimately to see a green, renewable, and reliable energy sources for our residents here, so that the cost of living, frankly, can go down and that they can do what they need to do, earn a living that allows them to stay on this island. Our sustainable development objectives are going to be provided to us by Beth Dykstra. I should say that Beth and our Deputy Director, Sulma Gandhi, Dr. Sulma Gandhi, are in large part responsible for what you're seeing on the screen here. Obviously, the specialist provided information, but when it came to developing this request for proposal document that you're going to be working on, it was Sulma and Beth that made it happen. So Beth, take it away.
Okay, hi everyone. The Sustainable Development Objectives are perhaps the broadest, and I want you all to pay attention to them because it's simple. If you can find something that you'd like to do that's in the Aloha Plus Challenge indicators or in the Hawaii 2050 Sustainability Plan, which Aloha Plus Challenge was built to implement, and our Climate Action Plan, please do a proposal for us. You'll see that there's a lot of overlap with our program areas. So if you're uncertain which it should fall into, don't worry. All of them actually should fall into sustainable development objectives, because that's kind of the point of our whole program. But if you have any questions, please let me know, give me a call, email me, and I'll be happy to help. Thanks.
Thanks, Beth. And now we turn to tourism, our visitor and hospitality industry. And as it has been for several years, Felicia Ceballos.
Mahalo, Doug. Aloha, everyone. So the tourism program is looking to fund projects that align with the goals of the Hawaii Island Tourism Strategic Plan. The vision of the plan is Ola Ka'aina, Ola Ke Kanaka, healthy land, healthy people. And the idea is that a successful tourism industry starts with a high quality of life for residents. The four goals include responsible tourism, supporting a sustainable regenerative visitor industry on Hawaii Island. It promotes the preservation of our natural cultural resources as well as high quality of life for communities. The second goal is Pono-based visitor communications, which reinforces authentic Hawaiian culture that ensures the foundation of our unique sense of place and establishes the necessary communication to visitors to care for our aina and culture. Third goal, place-based education for residents, supporting and encouraging both community-driven and institutional education initiatives that are grounded in place-based efforts. And the fourth goal is infrastructure, providing social benefits to both residents and visitors by supporting initiatives and existing efforts to improve transportation, community assets, and housing. We're also looking to fund pilot programs that not only align with the TSP, but includes the following components: engaging residents who have place-based knowledge and experience to identify, map, document natural and cultural resources, historical and cultural sites, as well as developing appropriate strategies and products to brand and share these sites. Engaging new or existing Hawaii Island-based businesses and interpretive programs to grow and expand their products and services, as well as provide training and materials on culturally and historically significant sites to appropriate visitor industry stakeholders. Mahalo.
Thanks, Felicia. Let's leave this slide up just for a moment. I want to make sure that I don't miss something that I probably should have said back a few slides before. It has to do with innovation. So we know that the grant basics typically don't change all that much. There are a couple of changes that we will address here. They don't change much from year to year, but there are a couple of changes we'll address. But when it comes to talking about an innovation, just make sure we're understanding what that has to do. We're talking about an idea that's transformed into practical reality. And that's what we're trying to do with the funds here. And so it can be in the form of a product, process, or a prototype. Through this RFP, we're seeking proposals that clearly demonstrate the potential to generate economic and equitable benefits. And that's a phrase that you haven't seen in previous years' RFPs, but we really are focusing on both the economic and the social or equitable benefits that should accrue from the work that's going to be done through your proposals to our residents through capacities such as business income, job growth, reduced expenses or environmental footprint, and greater efficiency. The emphasis is on innovative practices, technologies, and policies that will identify and solve known local issues. So I wanted to make sure that I hadn't forgot to talk about what we're trying to do here. It is about innovation. That's why it's an innovation grant. All right, let's move into the grant basics. Thanks. All right, eligible applicants. So you can be an educational institution, state or county agency, or a not-for-profit organization. We're not taking for-profit organizations or individuals. So make sure you're an organization of one kind or another as we identify here. And it needs to be incorporated under the laws of the state of Hawaii or a nonprofit organization that's exempt from federal income tax by the IRS. Again, the members of any nonprofit organization, the members of the governing board, shall be serving without compensation and have no material conflict of interest, which is the nice way of saying you'll lose your 501c3 if it's anything else anyway. You want to be licensed and accredited as applicable in accordance with the requirements of federal, state, and county governments. You have bylaws or policies that describe the manner in which business is conducted, and also policies on nepotism and the management of potential conflicts of interest. Always a good idea. Also have at least 1 year of experience with the project or in the program area being proposed. And then I may grant an exception if it's deemed worthy enough to do that. And then make sure you have staff or authorized representatives adequately trained to administer and provide the program that you describe, because you're the ones describing it. Our award ranges, the Innovation Grant Awards range from $5,000 to $25,000 in all program areas. The Tourism Interpretive Pilot Initiatives will range between $25,000 to $150,000. The initial invoice, when you first get paid, that'll be payable upon execution of the contract. And we'll talk about when that actually will be. And then, as is the case with county government, and particularly with our grants, not a surprise, 10% of the award of the grant is withheld pending submission and acceptance of the final narrative and financial report. So always make sure that you understand, you may see 10,000, but 1,000 of that won't show up until the contract is final and we've received the final report and you submitted that final invoice. There's a matching fund requirement. Those of you who applied or proposed last year will probably remember that this was waived last year, but this is back. So 1-to-1 matching fund requirement to the amount of funds requested, cash or in-kind contribution or a combination. Proof of matching funds not required at the time of application, but you should have an idea. So acceptable proof, a letter of matching funds commitment, copy of a check, receipts of deposit, bank statement, or a copy of an agreement between the applicant and another sponsor. Again, if you haven't provided proof at the time of the proposal, awarded grantees must provide proof of the matching funds within 30 days of the award notification. Again, we'll tell you when that's going to be. Let's move on. So, allowable expenses. So let's just recognize that you want to put together a project, the expenses for which are reasonable and directly related to the proposed project, and then also clearly described in the budget narrative. This is not a jobs program, right? So we're not providing all the funds here just for salary and wages. The idea is that this is about innovation. This is about determining whether there's a project or a prototype that you are proposing that's going to allow us to leverage in the future. And so you want to make sure that how you put this together isn't simply going to be, we're paying somebody to do something. That doesn't necessarily get it done. You'll notice also that equipment purchase is allowed. It hasn't been allowed in the recent past. And the reason for the change is it didn't make sense to us that we were going to be paying all this money to rent equipment when it may actually be less expensive to actually purchase the equipment. Again, reasonableness should be your watchword when it comes to all of these things. All right, let's move on. The key here, which of course is on, I believe it's on page 12 of the RFP. So the request for proposal was issued last Wednesday. This is the informational webinar. You see how quick I am on that. I catch on very quickly. We have the closing date for receipt of questions and comments is next Monday. So a week from today. If you have questions or comments on the RFP, make sure you get them to us by that time. And then our last day to actually respond to those will be by Wednesday, 2 days later. I will be corrected if I'm wrong, but I believe that the way we provide answers to the questions and or comments is we do it through the website, through the RFP We don't necessarily send you direct information to a direct question, because if you're asking a question, then likely somebody else is also asking that question and they just didn't tell us. So we're going to make sure that we're answering that for everybody. And then the proposal deadline itself is Tuesday, May 18th at 4:30 p.m. Hawaii Standard Time. So if there's any question for anyone, there is no other time but Hawaii Standard Time, right? There is no daylight time here. We don't change back and forth. 4:30 is the time that it actually is. By the way, you'll notice the asterisk at the bottom. The proposal deadline is not a postmark date. So if we got it on the 19th or the 20th of May, and you say, hey, I mailed it before 4:30, and the answer would be on the 18th, and the answer would be, it's not a postmark date. We need to have received it hard copy by the 18th by 4:30 p.m. on that day. And then the notification of the award will be no later than Wednesday, June 30th, right, Dr. Gandhi? And so we'll be doing our work to make sure that we get all that information and that we are able to notify the awardees of the awards by the end of the fiscal year. The grant agreement execution period is from July 6th through the 31st of July. That's so that we can work through the contract requirements for those who have been awarded. And then the tentative agreement commencement date would be Monday, August 2nd. And again, it's tentative depending on what the grant agreement execution period comes up with. If you have any questions about this, please make sure that you ask the questions in the Q&A time today. All right, let's move into what the format looks like. Everybody having a good time? Really exciting stuff, right? You have to get this stuff right. This is how you make sure that you don't lose points, right? Think about this in sense of figure skating, right? You've got your compulsories and then you got your free skate.
Oh,
Right?
salaries
The
and wages.
compulsories have to do with making sure that you get this information correct, right? Don't lose points here. And then the artistry of your proposal will be how you get the big points. All right. So grant application, the application and signed acknowledgement. And then what you see here is the project activities, measures, and outcomes matrix. And there's more information about this in the RFP. Exhibit A2, the project budget, 2 pages, income and expenses, fairly easy to fill out. A3 is the organization's information, and then A4 is the conflict disclosure forms. And we have both explanation within the RFP and then also examples of each of these things in the addenda of the RFP. The required organizational documents. Because I said this was so important, I'm actually going to talk through these. So the current articles of incorporation, the current bylaws, a current corporate resolution if your bylaws require it. If your bylaws don't say anything about needing a corporate resolution, then don't go looking for one. But if it does say you need one, then have the board develop one. Current board of directors list, and it has to have all of these information for the officers and members of the board. And that's for the folks that are in office at the time you are submitting the proposal, right? Not going to be coming in, not folks that were a previous year ago. It's the folks that are in at the time of the proposal. A list of persons who will execute the project and manage the funded activities. Please include descriptions of their qualification, education, and work experience. That'll be very helpful to the folks that will be doing the evaluation of these proposals, right? That way we know who you have, who's actually working, and their ability to accomplish what you're trying to accomplish with the proposal. A copy of IRS verification of tax exempt status, if applicable. And that would be applicable, of course, for nonprofit organizations. And then current financial statements signed and dated. New this year, a current certificate of compliance from the Hawaii Compliance Express program, the HCE program. And of course, government entities are excluded. And the reason we're doing that this year early as a part of the documents is that we found previously that if we wait to ask for this information, it delays actually the start of your proposal period, the start of the agreement period. So we want to make sure that you have the ability, that you've actually have the certificate of compliance with the HCE program when you submit it. There you go. So that's what you're going to need. The proposal narrative and complete package, right? We've got a total of 7 pages in the narrative format. Project abstract, which is a maximum of 1 page. You've got the narrative, which is a maximum of 5 pages, activities, outcomes, and organization qualifications. And then the budget narrative is a maximum of 1 page. It's going to be put on an 8.5 by 11, 1-inch margins, font size, 11 points or larger. Please don't give us 10-point font, right? That's why I wear these, all right? Thank you very much for that. A complete application package includes 1 complete set, all the required forms signed and dated, meaning originals, complete narrative, and all the required organizational documents. And then 2 additional sets, which are copies of the all required and signed forms and copies of the narratives. You notice that it does not say all the required organizational documents for the 2 additional sets. So you only need to give us 1 in the 1 complete set that has all the organizational documents. All right, on to the next. And then this is where we go. So the proposal submission by mail, you can send it to the Department of Research and Development at 25 Alpuni Street, room 1301 in Hilo, 96720, and we will get it. And then, of course, if it's a sealed proposal that you're mailing, you know, that needs to be in here no later than that 4:30 time on Tuesday, May 18. If you're concerned about the mail not getting here on time, then bring it to us. And you can bring it to us in either our East Hawaii office, which is, again, that same room, or you can bring it to our West Hawaii office, which is located at the West Hawaii Civic Center. They're on Ani Keoho Kalole Highway in Building C. And if you go to the map on either ones, you'll be able to see where it exactly is. This particular, I should say at this particular point, this slide deck will be available on our website. So in fact, you can go and click on both of those links if you're not sure where either of those 2 offices are. Okay. The evaluation criteria. So the evaluation criteria is a total of 100 points. For you to move from phase, make sure I got the right thing that I'm saying here. For you to move from phase 2 to phase 3, you have to get a minimum of 70, right? So that's why I'm saying get as many points as you can in the things that are easy to do, the compulsories, right? And then the project impact and the project innovation, that's where you can make some hay and make sure that you're doing things that are going to be, as we talked about before, meeting the goals and objectives of the Department of Research and Development and Innovation Grant. All right, so in the evaluation, let me stay on this just for a moment, if I could. This is all on page 16 of the RFP, and I would encourage you to look at this and make sure that your proposal is doing the things that are on this page, right? So the project impact, how well the proposed project outcomes advance the department's goal and program objectives and clearly demonstrate economic and equitable benefits to Hawaii Island residents. And then the extent to which the proposal reflects a coherent and feasible approach and includes a reasonable timeline for the completion of work, and then the clarity with which specific roles and responsibilities are defined. That's how project impact is going to be evaluated, okay? And then you can see project innovation, the fiscal capability and accountability piece, and the qualification experience all have particular aspects that you can take a look at. Make sure that you include those so that they are represented. You get the full score in terms of the evaluation piece of this. Okay. After we have done the evaluation and identified the awardees, and we have notified you no later than the 30th of June, 2021. Post-award, the grantee, meaning you who have won, still need to maintain your HCE compliance. You also, because we're so modest here in R&D, must recognize us in any program, public relations, brochures, and publications. This is all about making sure that the county gets, that we're doing a good job and that you are doing great things as well. And so we're very happy for all of us. Also, because this is part of our reporting, any events that you're having, there will be event admission for one of our specialists. No alcohol associated with any of those events, and no alcohol being funded by the county, by the way. No fundraising during grant-funded projects. And if there is a need to request any budget and or project modifications, you do so in writing and you await approval before implementing those modifications. And then there are progress and final reports that will be due during and at the end of the proposal, the contract period. Okay. So I have managed to put you all to sleep, but that's okay because I'm sure that you have great questions and answers. And because we have the smart people in here that will be able to answer you, I will ask my head question and answer person, do we have any questions from the esteemed audience?
So thus far, all the questions that have come through have been answered. If there are any other questions that anyone here has today, please put it in the question and answer box, in the Q&A box.
So while we're waiting for that, Princess, thanks so much. And thank you, Princess, by the way, for being the hostess with the mostest, making sure that the slides were working and that you were managing our chat and Q&A. That's been awesome. Really appreciate that. I just want to check with my team of stars here. I say anything incorrect, anything that you want to modify or tweak a little bit so that our audience gets the straight poop, as it were.
You did great, Doug. Good work.
Thanks, Beth.
I went ahead and answered a lot of the questions because that's just because I'm old and I've been here forever, but please look at if I wasn't clear or you need justification from other panelists, please look at them and make sure I gave the right answer.
I see Glenn with his high five up.
Thank you, Doug. So what I just wanted to go over with what you had said was with the in-kind contribution, such as volunteer time. I believe the national volunteer time value was $28 in 2019. Since we're coming into 2021, I would assume maybe around $30 an hour for volunteer time. And that should also match the type of work that they are doing. If you have an accountant putting in volunteer time, that probably would be worth more than $30. So they could, put in that what their value of the time. But if someone is perhaps making cardboard boxes, even though they may feel their time is worth $100 an hour, we would probably say, I'm sorry, but we'll put you down at $30 an hour. So, that's something that, they should consider. And another thing is on the board of directors, the terms of the directors is always, sometimes it's kind of confusing, and we want to make sure that they emphasize that the time when the directors are, put into their position and when it will end, not putting in something like 2 years, that creates some hang-ups. Let's see here. And that's all I have right now that came to me. Thank you.
Thanks, Glenn. Beth, did you want to add anything?
Yes, just that value of volunteer time. I have a toolkit on our webpage with the link to the independent sector. They're going to update their calculation for Hawaii shortly. I also have prevailing wages in Hawaii. If you're trying to guess how much someone gets paid for a certain kind of job, if it exceeds that, you might want to check that too. That's a resource.
And Beth, since you are currently typing your response, do you mind just vocally sharing about the no fundraising question. So it says, no fundraising is allowed during the project period. Can you elaborate on this and its rationale?
Sure, I will do my best. This has been a long-standing rule. Simply put, the proposal is for the project. We want to fund the project. And we don't have a say in who you're raising funds for or for yourself. If it's for your own organization, this is a tricky part. We just want to fund a project that does what is innovative and it will serve the community. And it's not to be, I don't mean to sound cold, but a self-serving exercise. Does that make sense? I know it's hard to put into words. I don't know if Doug or Solma wants to add anything to that.
I think it's pretty clear in the RFP itself, right? It's designed to pay attention to the goals and the objectives that are associated with the with the department. So if you go to page 5 of the RFP, the Department of Research and Development's goal is to support a high quality of life for Hawaii Island residents by supporting innovations that help to balance Hawaii Island's economic, social, environmental well-being, right? And then it talks about what an innovation is. And then our department program objectives, eligible proposals for innovation grant awards include research programs or projects that advance innovation in the areas of economic development, tourism, agriculture, creative industries, energy, and sustainable development in Hawaii County. And it should have been agriculture and food systems. And so those, you meet one of those objectives, you meet the department goal, and then you take a look at being innovative and equitable, and then you've got, you're on your way.
Thanks.
Princess, why don't we take this screen off and we can put our very handsome faces up there for everybody to see.
Okay, and I'll go through the remaining questions that have filtered in. So there's a question regarding logos. Would you provide us with the logo and or brand from your office to put on any publications we develop via the grants?
And I see thumbs up and nodding heads, meaning yes, we will.
Okay.
And really, it's not an R&D logo, it's the County of Hawaii logo.
Okay, thank you. Is there a limit to the number of proposals? Is there a limit to the number of proposals submitted? So can one entity partner with different organizations for different proposals, submit multiple?
I'm not aware of any limit.
Nope.
Okay. The next question we have is, there are several areas of interest, so like agritourism, that overlap several target areas in your RFP. Do you have any recommendations of how to think about which areas might best fit for our project or might best fit our project?
I would, I think I will ask our specialist to address that. I would just introduce their comments by saying that actually you're going to know best about your project. And so, but there may be some specific things based on their experience that our specialists would like to talk about. So for example, we'll take agritourism and we'll turn to Glenn Sacco and Frecia Ceballos for their comments.
Okay. Oh, yeah. So we have come across this before, and what would probably happen is, first of all, the project would be, the proposal would be scored to see if it would qualify for funding, irregardless of whether it's in agriculture or tourism. And then in the past, what we've done is Frecia, the specialist, and I, we may talk about it and feel which one they were felt it fit more closely in their, for their area goals. And so, you know, we've kind of handed projects back and forth for those that fit, or if they really felt strongly about funding that with their funds. Frecia, any other comment?
If your project aligns with the goals of the tourism strategic plan, then I would suggest applying for the tourism program. If it aligns with agriculture, then I would suggest the ag. So as long as you find that goal or objective that closely aligns with your program, then I would stick to that.
Thanks.
Okay. So the next question we have is, if working with more than one section, does one of them take the lead? So who decides? And also, does funding come from only one of them?
So I think that that's a continuation, if you might, from the previous question. So the funding comes from the budget that's provided to us by the administration and the county council, right? And so we are looking at what makes sense for a particular proposal and which area it makes sense to be in. You're going to give us what you think, because that's how you're going to apply. You can't apply for more than one in a particular proposal, but then we're going to see what the logic of the situation is. And if there is a need for it to move to another area, then that's fine. Then we'll take a look at doing that. But we're not mixing and matching the funding, because the funding is provided to us in specific areas by the administration and the county council.
Okay. And the last question that we have thus far is it possible to chat with specialists about ideas we have?
It is possible to chat with specialists about ideas. I think that the questions that I'm referring to in terms of the questions and comments that have to do with the RFP have to do with specifically the elements of the RFP. In other words, is there some issue? But if you're looking at proposals and you're thinking about what proposals look like in terms of the content or the prototype aspects of it, by all means, have a conversation. I'm sure that they'd be open to it.
Okay, thank you. That is the questions that we have thus far. There is just one more question that popped up: allowable administrative fee cap. I'm not exactly sure if that relates to what you just spoke of.
No, it has to do with what we'll allow for overhead. And again, there needs to be a reasonable amount. And so we'll take a look at all of these proposals, and that will be a consideration as well. But I don't believe, correct me if I'm wrong here, but I don't believe, I'm seeing a finger from Beth saying, please let me talk. Go ahead, Beth.
10%.
And that's the cap.
On the subtotal of all grant funded expenditures. Sorry, he's new.
No, that's great. I was about to say I'm not aware of a cap, but that's better to have the cap. There you go. I need to ask, I'm not aware that we put that in the RFP. Did we? Did I miss that?
It is, and I can't remember which page or where it's hidden. I will find it though.
Okay, that'd be great. Maybe we just highlight that in a response somewhere on the
Yes,
page.
it is on the budget form itself. So.
Okay. The next question we have is, does the project have to take place on Hawaiʻi Island? For example, if research is conducted on an outer island because the conditions do not exist on Hawaiʻi Island yet, but the results are intended to inform Hawaiʻi Island projects, would this project apply under this grant?
So the proposal is going to be evaluated on its merits, right? I mean, you have the compulsories, and then you have the creative artistry of it, right? And so the merits, again, you're competing against others, and so it will depend on how close you come to meeting the department's goal and program objectives as a part of your program.
And Doug, sorry, I wanted to also add, I have had a project move off island in the past only because the conditions was detrimental to the results of the research, but that was a special request. Typically all work is done on this island because the different islands, they have different conditions, but that was just a special request that required approval before we allowed it to move off island. Thank you.
Thanks, Glenn. And Beth put the page number, page 13, section 3.6.2 for the previous.
Administrative cap, right?
Yes. Okay, thus far we don't have any further questions yet.
All right, let me let me just ask any of our specialists if there's anything else that they would like to add. So Glenn, anything else?
No, I mean, we expect a lot of proposals. Agriculture is so exciting and people are really enthusiastic about agriculture in Hawaii County. So, we're looking forward to a lot of exciting, innovative proposals.
Thanks, Glenn. Sarah?
No, thank you.
Riley?
No, but if you put a lot of energy into it, make sure it's renewable.
Make sure it's renewable energy. That's very good, Riley. Thank you.
Right.
Justin?
I can't top Riley's joke, so no, I have nothing further to add.
Okay. Jane?
No, I don't have anything to add.
Prisha?
Nothing for me. Thank you.
Beth?
No, sir.
And then let me turn to our Deputy Director and ask Dr. Sulma Gandhi if she would like to make any comments before we close this out.
I will share a couple of reminders at the end, but Princess, there's another question if you'd like to pose.
Okay, yes. So this question is, does the grant support research or is the focus more on project implementation?
So we are not even though the name says Department of Research and Development, the research we do is practical, right? We are making sure that we are gathering information that comes from research that folks have done in labs or out in the field, right? Our work is designed to be a practical application. And so it is a balance. And when you're taking a look at the proposal that you are putting together, keep in mind that balance. I'm not going to say that there aren't some things that might be local research that might be helpful, particularly if you can show a follow-on endeavor that shows a practical application that would be supportive of our community and our residents. But it needs to be pretty good for that to happen. Practical application is the way that we're working here.
Thank you.
Okay, it doesn't look like we have any more questions. So I just want to make the reminder that questions and comments for this RFP are due by April 12th, and we will respond by April 14th. This presentation, along with the transcript, once we receive the transcript from Naleo, will be posted on our innovation website, on the R&D website. So those were the two main comments I wanted to make. Beth, is there anything else you'd like to share?
No, very thorough. It's great.
Excellent.
Oh, the requests have to be in writing. Please submit them in writing, the questions.
The questions that are due on April 12th in writing. Thank
Right,
you.
and then we will amend an RFP if need be in response to those. But after that date, just watch the website for amended RFPs if changes come in.
Thank you. Seeing no more questions, I wanted to end with a big mahalo to Naleo TV and Micah for hosting us today. We were able to have it closed caption and to have this run smoothly. I see we had over 45 attendees at one point in this webinar, which would have been very difficult to do if we were in person with our pandemic protocols. So mahalo Micah and Naleo for all your support and help. And I want to thank everybody within the R&D team for supporting and making this happen. So aloha.
So I will close this out and thank Suma for that. And we will not forget, of course, Cyrus Jonathan, our PIO for the county, and the work that he's done as well. It takes a full team to make this happen, and we really appreciate it. And I would just make sure so that there is no confusion. if you're going to talk to our specialists about an idea that you have, understand that one, they're not going to tell you, you know, what you should do with that proposal, right? It may be that they can tell you about previous proposals, but they're not going to make a judgment on your proposal. That's not their place to do. The second thing is that after the 12th, don't bother calling them. They're not going to be able to talk to you about those proposals. And this is all about fairness, right? Everybody being able to come in with that information, expecting that everybody else has had the same degree of connections as everybody else. So as has been said here, but because I am the master and captain of the obvious, we encourage you to apply. Let's make our future on this island a good one, and let's start it today. All right, aloha, and thank you so much.